Good day, everyone. My name is Joville, and today I will present a summary and reflection on a systematic review published by Chen and colleagues entitled Leadership in English Language Teaching and Learning, a systematic review of the past decade. Okay, so this presentation will explore on how research on leadership in language education has evolved over the past 10 years and how these insights apply directly to our classrooms and school management. Okay, so for the introduction, what is leadership in English language teaching and learning? So the core importance it says here that leadership directly determines the overall quality and success of English language education worldwide. Okay, so educational leadership is not just a high level administrative task, it directly affects classroom instruction, teacher morale, and also the students' achievement in English language classrooms. And when leadership systems function well, teachers, of course, receive better support, which leads directly to improved language acquisition and learning outcomes for the students. Okay, but there is a gap. It says here existing models focus primarily on broad school governance while overlooking language specific pedagogical challenges. Okay, so for decades, general school leadership models have focused primarily on broad administrative tasks like managing the budget, maintaining school facilities, and also enforcing school rules. But that's okay. However, these traditional models largely ignore the specific challenges which are unique to the English language teaching. So they fail to address issues like managing student language anxiety, supporting multilingualistic classrooms, or helping language teachers implement modern communicative teaching strategies. And to address this gap, Chen and colleagues conducted a systematic review of empirical research published over the past decade from 2014 to 2024. And their goal was to synthesize 10 years of findings to establish clear, evidence based leadership frameworks which are tailored specifically to the needs of English language education. Okay, so for the theoretical framework, the first framework here is distributed and shared leadership. Okay, so this framework moves away from the idea that a school principal is the sole leader in an institution. Instead, distributed leadership views leadership as a collective effort shared among department heads, master teachers, subject coordinators, and classroom teachers who work together to make instructional decisions. Okay, so that is the distributed and shared leadership. Let's now move on to the instructional and transformational. Okay, so for instructional leadership, it focuses directly on the core business of teaching and lear- learning, ensuring that curriculum design, classroom teaching, and the assessments are high quality. Okay, so that is instructional. Let's now move on to the transformational. Okay, so when we say transformational leadership, it focuses on inspiring, motivating, and supporting teachers emotionally and professionally, building a positive school culture where educators feel empowered to innovate. Okay, Next is we have interactional and social network frameworks. Okay, so these models look at how leadership actually happens through daily communication, informal advice sharing, and professional connections among the teachers. So instead of relying on top down orders, leadership functions through strong social networks and continuous collaboration within academic departments. Okay, let's now move on to the statements or the objectives of this study. Okay, the first one is what conceptual models of leadership are studied in English language education? Okay, so the study set out to identify and categorize the specific theoretical models and leadership concepts that researchers have used over the last decade to study leadership within English language education. Okay, the second one, what are the key characteristics, practices, and outcomes of teacher leadership and student leadership? Okay, so the second objective was to examine what teacher leadership and student leadership actually look like in real educational settings, identifying the daily practices leaders perform and also the concrete outcomes these practices produce for schools. Okay, the last one is what research methodologies, theoretical perspectives, and educational settings have characterized this field over the past decade. Okay, so the study sought to evaluate how research in this field has been conducted over the past 10 years, including the research methods used, the types of data collected, and the specific geographical and institutional settings where the research took place. Okay. Now, here are the key findings of this study. The first one is the leadership as practice rather than position. So it's like action over title. So the research clearly demonstrates that leadership in language education is defined by what people do, not by their formal job titles. So, any educator who actively guides curriculum design, mentors a peer, or improves classroom practices is exercising meaningful leadership. Okay, the second is impact of teacher leadership. Okay, so when teachers are encouraged to step into leadership roles, the positive impacts ripple across the institution. So the review found that strong teacher leadership leads to improved teaching quality, higher teacher job satisfaction, and stronger departmental teamwork, and also better student test scores. Okay, so that is the impact of teacher leadership. The next one is emergence of student leadership. Okay, so the review reveals that leadership is not exclusive to adults. It also emerges among students during classroom instruction. So, during collaborative and communicative tasks, students naturally take on leadership roles by guiding their peers, clarifying instructions, and facilitating group discussions. And the last one is no methodological trends. Okay, so over the past decade, research in English language teaching leadership has grown more sophisticated. Scholars are moving beyond simple one-time survey studies and are increasingly using quantitative models, social network analysis, and long term longitudinal studies to measure the true impact of leadership practices. Okay, so those are the key findings of this study. Now for the conclusion. Okay, this study concludes that language leadership is not a one size fits all model. Okay, so effective language leadership cannot follow a rigid and universal template. That's why it's called not a one size fits all model. So it must be flexible and adaptable. Adapt Adaptable to the specific institutional culture of the school, available digital technology of the school, and also the unique background and the needs of the students. Okay. Next one, schools must actively invest in department chairs and teacher mentors to drive sustainable instructional quality. Okay, to ensure long term instructional quality, school management must actively invest in middle leaders. When we say middle leaders, um, it means those leaders like the department heads, grade level coordinators, and master teachers. Okay, so those individuals mentioned serve as the primary link between high level management and daily classroom reality. Okay, and the last one is schools must support teachers as they transition from traditional lecture based instruction to becoming digital facilitators in modern classrooms. Okay, furthermore, classroom group activities must be intentionally designed to promote equitable student participation so that all learners get a fair opportunity to practice peer leadership. Okay, and for my reflection in this study, okay, the first bullet we have new preparation focus. Okay, so graduate programs and administrative workshops should spend less time on basic school business management like finance or facilities maintenance. Instead, they must focus on collaborative leadership, language policy development, and equipping future leaders to conduct action research to solve real instructional problems. Okay, the next one is building resilience. So, when top management distributes leadership authority to middle leaders and teacher mentors, language departments become far more resilient. When unexpected curriculum changes or policy shifts occur, a well supported team of teacher leaders can adapt quickly and keep instruction running smoothly. Okay, the third one is promoting equity. Okay, so educational leaders must design systems that reduce language anxiety and promote inclusion or inclusivity. And by structuring group tasks carefully, leaders ensure that lower proficiency or quiet students, so those shy students, are not pushed aside, giving every learner a supportive environment to participate and lead. Okay. And for the core takeaway, leadership in ELT must be shared, contextual, and focus on classroom practice rather than top down control. Okay, and another reflection as a private teacher. Okay, so what ELT leadership research means for my classroom. Okay, as a private teacher who is in the classroom every single day, the findings from this study speak directly to my work and my experience. So it serves as a great reminder that leadership in English language teaching is not just reserved for principals, directors, or people with grand job titles. It is actually something I practice right inside my own classroom every day. So the study highlights shared leadership and instructional leadership, which are mentioned earlier, showing that I am already acting as a leader whenever I carefully plan my daily lessons, design fair tests, or work alongside my fellow teachers to handle new school policies and curriculum changes. And when I organize group activities so that quiet or shy students get a safe, equal opportunity to speak up and share their ideas, I am turning these studies ideas about equity and fairness into reality, into real practical classroom actions. And when I step away from traditional long lectures and instead guide my students through interactive digital tasks, I am bringing also these studies focus on modern classroom innovation to life. Okay, so this research changes how I view my current role as an educator. It shows me that as I teach my high school students, pursue my graduate studies, and prepare for future roles like a department head or subject coordinator, I am doing much more than just managing a classroom. I am serving as a practical teacher leader who bridges the gap between academic research and daily teaching, which builds strength, resilience, and a real positive change right where my students need it the most. Okay, so that's all for my presentation. Thank you for listening.